Welcome back! If you've been watching this series from the very beginning, thank you so much, I appreciate it. I'm really pushing and challenging myself with this series, and every view is nothing short of encouragement. This is a rewrite/review of episode 4, and like always, first impression criticisms come first, and then the rewrite. Let's go ahead and just get started already. First criticism, Reva interrogating Leia. Because Leia is a child, she wouldn't necessarily understand the politics within her society, and she even states that she believed the Empire to be on their side.
It wasn't always like this here. There were fields and families, and then the Empire came in and ravaged it all.
But the Empire was supposed to be helping us.
Not to mention that up to this point, all Leia has seen is Kenobi attacking first and the stormtroopers defending themselves. That could have been a stellar moment of Reva confusing and manipulating Leia without her even having to raise her voice. Also, it's been pointed out that Leia is very perceptive of the people around her, and that could have been used as well. When Reva uses the Force on Leia, that was a joke. She really couldn't pull the information out of a child after reading Kenobi like an open book. Second criticism, Leia. When Leia was hooked to the machine, she should have been crying her eyes out. That's what realistically a child would do, but also because when a child is sobbing and pleading for help, that's when things get serious. I will admit that she did look very concerned, but when she was asking for help, it sounded more demanding than pleading.
What are you doing to me? Ugh. Let go! Let me out! Help! Somebody help! Please!
Third criticism. Tala should have died in this episode. I think I've determined that episode 2, 4, and 5 are the weakest for me. Which one takes the cake? I'll let you know in episode 5. I will say the sequence of Leia, a child being interrogated, was interesting, and there were parts where both actresses shined. Originally, I wanted to add the reveal of Reva's backstory in episode 5, but because Kenobi is experiencing flashbacks of his own in that episode, I didn't want to clutter it, so I'm moving her flashback reveal to the opening of episode 4. In hindsight, it makes sense to reveal her backstory after her encounter with Kenobi. After Reva's tragic backstory is revealed, the camera cuts to her sitting in silence, pondering on her encounter with Kenobi and what it unleashed. The fourth sister sitting across from her snaps at Reva, claiming that she's making her nervous. The atmosphere has been tense upon their failure of capturing Kenobi. Inquisitors very rarely converse amongst each other, but Reva's curiosity gets the better of her. What's so special about Kenobi? The fourth sister takes a quick scan of the room. She doesn't know herself, except that he's labeled as a high threat level to the Empire. Do you really think one man is capable of toppling the Empire? It doesn't matter what I think. If the Empire says he's an enemy, then he needs to be cut down. The fifth brother abruptly enters, announcing his victory. Confused, the sisters ask for clarification. Leia is pushed out from behind on the verge of tears. With confidence, the fifth brother claims, "He came for her once, he'll do it again." Originally, I didn't plan on extending the scene this much, but it just kind of wrote itself to an extent. I think because, 1, the Inquisitors are constantly at each other's throats, trying to take the top position for themselves, and I kind of wanted to show them somewhat being cordial with each other, not because they like each other, but because there's always more to see than what we're given. That's the second thing. When Darth Vader comes on screen, that should have been the point where the Inquisitors not necessarily unite, but just realize they're all in the same boat. And that's the third thing. It's clear that the Empire and the First Order are supposed to represent fascism, and we all know what first comes to mind when we hear that. Anyway, I want to show the intensity of being in that kind of environment. Showing the Inquisitors being more comfortable out in the field than in the comfort of their stronghold. And showing them pausing mid-sentence because they're afraid to say the wrong thing. One more thing. I feel like I need to clarify. Reva doesn't remember what happened before being reconditioned. But there are flashes of memories that confuses her, and that's why she's asking questions, to make better sense of them. Kenobi awakes, startled that he's underwater. Tala taps on the glass to calm him down. He surfaces asking about Leia. Tala is hesitant but reveals that she's been taken. Kenobi wastes no time getting out of the tank, but his wounds are still tender and collapses. Tala urges him that he needs more time, but he tells her there's no time left. She dresses his wounds as best she can and tells him that Roken is the one in charge, and that he'll need his help if he wants to get Leia back. However, Tala confesses that he'll have better luck receiving it if she's not with him. When Kenobi asks why, she replies that he's passionate. Despite this, Kenobi insists that he can't do this without her. They speak to Roken, but he's not hearing it, claiming that there's far too much to lose and not enough to gain by helping one child. Tala tries to argue, but Roken quickly shuts her down. You're an Empire soldier. What's the probability of a mission like this being a success? Tala says nothing since they both already know the answer. Seeing the damage that the Empire has done to him, Kenobi appeals to what's left of Roken's hope. You've done good for so many people in these dark days. Her father is a senator, who too is trying to do what good he can. If the Empire uses his daughter against him, it'll make the fight for good that much harder. Roken finally agrees. I hate to be that person that complains about uplifting dialogue, but what's inspirational about Kenobi saying that Leia is precious to him and Roken catering to his needs, over all the other things that is happening? I'm not saying that they shouldn't try to rescue Leia, but give a reasonable argument why Roken should give his limited resources to Kenobi over all the other people that needs help. Roken's an interesting character that I don't think we get enough from. It's clear that he's been scarred by the Empire, and it would be understandable that he would develop a hatred towards them, meaning Tala. I added the hostility because I wanted to show the effect the Empire causes on people. They tear families apart and ruining people's lives. There is going to be some type of residual effect from that, and I feel that we don't see enough of this in the series. We kind of see in the Inquisitors with how they don't get along with each other, but when it comes to the good guys, so to speak, they get along way too easily. Tala is a former Empire soldier, and the people that she's assisting are people she helped victimize. Even though she probably didn't directly hurt any of them, she still contributed. So it only makes sense that Roken and some, if not all the others, are carrying something with them that makes them somewhat distrusting and hostile towards Tala. The fifth brother interrogates the trembling Leia for information. Leia says nothing as she's too afraid to speak. Tired of her not responding, he pulls out Lola. He tells Leia that when he was younger, he loved taking droids apart. Holding Lola, he uses the Force so Leia can have a good view of Lola being taken apart.
Lola! I'm not afraid of you. My father will rescue me. He's a senator. He'll send a whole army.
The fifth brother laughs hysterically, but in an instant stops. Well, Your Highness, if that's true, then where is it? Why didn't he send an army to retrieve you when you were back on Dayun? Why did he choose to send an old man instead? Because he doesn't give a damn about you. That's not true! Unfortunately, it is. Because you're not a real princess. You're not worth an army. Leia desperately tries to hold back her tears, but they fall anyway. A child in this situation should be scared shitless, and Leia should be no exception. The reason I'm changing it from Reva interrogating her to the fifth brother is because, one, he's motivated to get additional information from her, which he hopes will make him look good in Vader's eyes, and two, this guy literally does nothing throughout the entire series. Absolutely nothing. I just wanted to give him something to do. Lastly, this is going to be a pivotal moment for little Leia. That's going to be a cataclysm that births the Leia we all were first introduced to and fell in love with through the late and great Carrie Fisher's performance. One more thing, I couldn't help but feel that Lola was somewhat of a representation of Leia's childhood, her innocence, and when Lola is taken apart, that's basically symbolizing the end of childhood for Leia. After making a plan, they board the ship and anticipate their arrival. Kenobi is silent, but Tala can see he's in pain. She hands him a pain disabler, explaining that stormtroopers take it before combat. Kenobi tries to hide his displeasure and gives it back, but Tala sees right through him. You're not condoning or becoming one of them by using their medicine. They did this to you. It's only right that they fix it. I deserve these burns. I've met Jedis before, each with their own scars and burdens. But you're a cut above the rest. What is it that haunts you so that makes you think you deserve this? We tried to prevent this, but in our own way we contributed to it. Tala tells how she contributed to the Empire and how she's been trying to make up for it ever since. She doesn't mind how the others treat her, but Kenobi argues, saying that they should be grateful for her help. Tala's confident that they are, but won't expect anything less from them, especially since she has yet to forgive herself. Approaching their destination, it's time to execute the plan. I'm pretty sure you've already guessed what's going to happen if you paid attention, but I won't spoil it. This was more or less just setting the stage, allowing a few tender moments before it hits the fan. Reva enters the interrogating room and places a supplement on the table. I thought you might be hungry. This is the only one that has a sweet taste to it. Leia's hesitant to take it, but crying did burn energy. She takes a bite and Reva laughs at her displeased expression. Reva takes a seat beside Leia. Leia carefully watches, but Reva does keep her distance. I don't know anything, and even if I did, I wouldn't tell you. You're bad people. You're right. We're soldiers, and we do questionable things, so the good people don't have to. Like the Organas. They're good people, or at least I thought they were. My parents are good people. Are you sure about that? If they were good people, then why are you here right now? Why did they send a war criminal to retrieve you, instead of a diplomat that could have already negotiated your return home? Do they even treat you like one of their own? The tears begin to swell, telling Reva what she needs to push Leia even further. She asks her about home and Leia hesitantly talks about the things she likes, but Reva steers the question towards the things she doesn't. Like her cousin that picks on her or her aunts and uncles that pretend she's not there. Reva claims that the Empire wouldn't treat her like that, but Leia notices a slight change in her tone. She calls Reva out for lying, which catches Reva off guard. You're not like that other guy. I don't think you want to do this. You're a good person. You also seem sad, too. Reva doesn't respond. Leia reaches for her, but she quickly pulls away and angrily stands. The fifth brother and fourth sister enters and informs that the machine has been prepared. Reva's caught off guard and requests clarification. The fifth sister grabs Leia and the fifth brother explains that the reconditioning machine has been prepared and orders Reva to oversee the reconditioning of Leia. Reva is unresponsive to the orders, which delights the fifth brother. He further explains that he will be arriving soon. The fifth brother expects information before then. Reva hesitantly does as she's told, but in somewhat of a daze. She can't even hear Leia crying out to her not to let them hurt her. But Leia grabs Reva's hand, begging for her help. Reva just tells her not to fight it. It only hurts more. Watching Leia be strapped to the machine is too much and she leaves. The fourth sister calls her out, but Reva glares at her, making the fourth sister fearful of her for the first time. I hope I conveyed the manipulation of a child convincingly. I never thought I'd have to say that. Balancing a childlike persona of young Leia is a little tricky given that she's received an advanced education that gives her more insight than the average child. The thing that I really wanted to showcase in this interrogation was that Reva and Leia are both victims of the Empire, and to an extent that connects them. Even though Reva is manipulating Leia to get information from her, she's also doing this to essentially protect her from the fifth brother, because she knows he's going to just keep escalating until he gets what he wants. However, due to what happened with Kenobi, she's not as closed off anymore, and Leia, being insightful, can see that and that she's hurting. Which obviously makes Reva uncomfortable because, again, any doubt was used as an excuse to recondition her, and even though the Grand Inquisitor is dead, the fear is still there, and it's immediately shown when the fifth brother announces that what will be done to Leia. And to add salt to the wound, he makes Reva do it out of pure spite. At this point, I think it's pretty clear that Leia would be terrified out of her mind, and that's what's really bothering me the most in this show. Adults in stressful situations can and sometimes do regress back into crying children begging for their mothers. If an adult can be reduced down to that, then it's logical to assume that a child would respond similar to that, if not 10 times worse. That's the thing. This scene would have been more impactful, emotional, and suspenseful had Leia been crying, because I'm pretty sure that's what the writers and directors were going for. That's the reason I complain so much about Leia, is because they're not letting her be a child. And you know something else that's weird? They never pick her up. Maybe they did once or twice that I can't recall, but they never carry her, which would actually be easier on the characters if they did. I don't know why they don't, and the only reason I can come up with is that they somehow think that this will affect the independency they're going for with this character. Executing their rescue plan, Tala looks for Leia in the system and Kenobi finds the corpses of his fallen brethren. He feels Leia's distress and it guides him to her. Tala cuts off the power in the room, but that's all she can do as Reva walks in on her. Kenobi attacks, but the fourth sister's reflexes keeps her in the fight. Spotting where Leia is, Kenobi moves the fight out of her line of sight. The fight drags on a little longer than he anticipated, but he does manage to land the fatal blow. Kenobi unties Leia and she holds onto him tightly, pleading that she wants to go home. Kenobi carries her out of the reconditioning room and promises just that. I talked about how upset I was that Kenobi didn't fight any of the other Inquisitors, and I knew that he was going to have a showdown with 3 of them, but with the 5th brother, I'm still not sure. Also, I couldn't help but notice how quickly Kenobi was to violence in episode 3 in front of Leia. I can't help but feel that to an extent he would be mindful about that until it just can't be helped. Reva intensely questions Tala, but Tala stands firm and quickly responds to every one of Reva's questions. However, the speed in which she answers is suspicious, but Reva's too distracted to make a proper assessment, which only aggravates her even more. She warns Tala not to lie to her, and another soldier walks in reporting that the fourth sister is dead. Reva glares at Tala, and with a straight face, Tala tells her this is what she was trying to warn her about. Sensing that Reva is no longer buying her act, she makes her way to the door, insisting that they need to hurry before they escape. With not a second to lose, Tala shoves the soldier in the room and locks the door. Reva tries to use the force, but she can't focus. Tala doesn't stick around to watch Reva ram her lightsaber in the door. I really like Tala's character, especially throughout the entire segment that they're in this fortress. I enjoyed watching her when she's playing soldier and telling people off, and it was a relief that she kept up the persona even after she was caught. Normally they would just start fighting after that point, but they played it smart. However, I can't help but wonder if Reva was just toying with her. There's this inconsistency with her character in the show where she's able to read people like an open book in one scene, but in the next, for whatever reason, she just can't. With their presence known, Kenobi can't hide the horrors of the battlefield any longer from Leia. When the stormtroopers are taken out, Kenobi looks at Leia. Unfortunately, she understands that it was necessary. Like I said, this is a pivotal moment for Leia, and when she responds that it was necessary, that's when it's made clear that her childhood is over. She's not only seen death now, she's also seen her rescuer, Kenobi, take a life, several of them. When Tala catches up to them, Kenobi instructs her to take Leia before the glass shatters. Tala carries Leia out of danger and luckily manages to keep them from getting caught. Just as they think they made it, Reva catches up to them and berates Tala for being a traitor and asks why. For the same reason why you're questioning your own loyalty. Reva trembles at her blunt statement and Leia asks her to come with them. Kenobi wonders if she's actually considering it, but the fifth brother opens fire. They all duck for cover as Reva stands bewildered. The pilots arrive and Kenobi makes a run for them, carrying Leia. The fifth brother grabs Reva, threatening her if Kenobi escapes. I think you can guess what he threatened her with. Reva's a little disoriented on who she should go after, but then spots Kenobi, the one that triggered all of this. When she's close enough, she throws her lightsaber at Kenobi, but Tala takes it instead. Leia screams as Kenobi places her in the speeder. The other pilot buys Kenobi what time he can. Kenobi carefully discharges the lightsaber so it won't hurt Tala any more than it already has. She knows this is the end. She tells Kenobi that she hopes it was enough and tells him not to be so hard on himself. With stormtroopers pouring out of the fortress, he has no choice but to leave her. The fifth brother takes one of the speeders out, but not the one they were in. There really wasn't a need to change too much here except for how the characters responded. I didn't realize how heavily I wanted to show Reva's decline in the scene until after Leia asks her to come with them. I strongly feel it would just be a downward spiral after that. So that's gonna be fun to write. I knew Tala was going to die in this episode before I even started writing it. Tala is by far my favorite character in this entire series, and I personally believe she was the best well-written character as well. I honestly think she peaked in episode 4, and by episode 5 she really wasn't doing anything, and when she died it felt cheap. I think what I really liked about her character and why she and Kenobi worked so well was that they were both soldiers that had regrets. Not to mention the chemistry between the actors was really good as well. Darth Vader is exhausted by the Inquisitor's failures and uses the Force on both of them. They plead for mercy, and only when Reva uses the Force to knock over a chair does he let them go. On their knees, gasping for air, Reva informs that Kenobi took her lightsaber. The fifth brother scolds her for her incompetence. However, Reva reveals that the Grand Inquisitor placed a tracker in her lightsaber, claiming that they can kill two birds with one saber. Vader applauds Reva, stating that's exactly what the Grand Inquisitor would have done. There is subtext in that, but I won't tell what. Roken spots Leia and believes the mission to be a success, but then asks where Tala and Wade are. The looks that they all project answers his question. Leia consoles Kenobi as Roken gives a few words to the Fallen and surprisingly praises Tala for her camaraderie. I originally did think about writing Roken not respecting Tala after death and him and Kenobi getting into a spat because of it, but Roken's a good, solid character that I don't want to demonize. So even though I wrote him to be slightly bitter towards Tala, which I explained why, he respects the Fallen. Also, the whole chair sequence, Reva just did that to get Vader's attention, because using the Force on Vader would be a death sentence. And that will do it for episode 4. 2 more episodes left and I cannot wait because I am exhausted. I hope you guys are enjoying this because this is taking a lot out of me. Despite all that, this is a very humbling experience that's teaching me a lot, and I hope you're learning something from these videos as well. I cannot thank you enough for sticking around as long as you have, and I do hope that I'm somewhat doing right by the Star Wars fans. If I'm getting something wrong, which I probably am, please feel free to correct and educate me, and I will see you in the next video. Please like and subscribe!